88 to 91 FM. BBC Radio 2.
They had the voices of angels with looks to match, and they sang and wrote songs which reflected the angst, hopes, fears and loves of a generation. They were the Everly Brothers, and their fabulous career began 50 years ago.
Bye-bye love, bye-bye happiness, hello loneliness, I think I'm gonna cry. I'll never let you see the way my broken heart is hurting me. I've got my pride. Love hurts, love scars, love wounds and mars. Don't want your love anymore. Johnny is a joker, he's a bird, a very funny joker, he's a bird. I've been made blue, I've been lied to. When will I be loved? Dream, 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 dream. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. Wake up, little Susie.
Such great songs. I'm Bob Harris, and over the next 3 weeks, I'm going to be telling you how Don and Phil Everly went from singers in the family band to the hottest pop act in the world. How they were first to sign a $1 million recording contract, how they worked themselves almost to death on the road, split acrimoniously, and reunited 10 years later. It's hard to overestimate the Everlys' importance to pop music. John Lennon and Paul McCartney in their early years strove to emulate the Everlys' immaculate two-part harmonies, as did Simon and Garfunkel, who covered the Everlys' songs and would team up with their heroes in years to come. Don and Phil's own influence came from the brother duets that had gone before, the Delmore brothers, and particularly the Louvin brothers. First cousin of the Louvins, John D Loudermilk, who would go on to write a big hit for the Everlys, remembers how the Louvin brothers' own unique two-part harmony couldn't be reproduced when one of them died.
Charlie never has been able to find anybody after Ira died that could harmonize with him. He asked me to sing a thing with him one time, and I sang a little bit, and I had to quit. It was so bad on my side.
And John reckons there's a reason for that.
You live in the same womb for 9 months, and then you come out and you meet somebody that lived there for 9 months. Surely you got the same acoustical values. So I think that has a lot to do with it. They sure were good, boy, I'm telling you.
Brothers, it was traditional.
Don Everly.
The Wilburn brothers, Louvin brothers. My mom and my dad and his two brothers, they were a trio. So, I mean, they were second generation Everly brothers when you really get down to it. Family sang together, and it's traditional in the South. On the back porch, the family gets together, and on the front porch and sings together.
The Everlys' parents, Ike and Margaret, were already a performing folk country act when the boys came along, and as soon as it was possible, Ike got his sons into the business on the family radio show in Knoxville, Tennessee. Though they were both left-handed, he taught them to play guitar right-handed, and Ike was the perfect teacher. John D. Loudermilk again.
His father was a great guitarist. Chet had listened to him. He had listened to Moe's black fella who played thumb-picking guitar, and then Everly, he picked it up, and then Merle Travis picked it up, and then Chet picked it up, and now everybody's got it. You know, everybody's picking like that.
The Everly Boys made their debut on the radio with their parents when Don was 8 and Phil just 6, on radio station KMA from Shenandoah, Iowa, and they'd accompany Mum and Dad on their summer tours. In 1953, the family moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, where they worked on station WROL. By the time they got into their teens, the boys were getting the hang of it.
Roll along, along, Jordan. me on my way. Roll along, along, Jordan, roll me home today. I'm gonna ride away from here. I'm gonna ride away from here. Darkness falling, Gabriel's calling, gonna ride away from here. Roll along, along, Jordan, roll me on my way.
Well, a great big howdy do to all of our good friends and neighbors. This is Dad Everly talking for the Everly family. And we're going to play and sing you some songs, neighbors, family style, also country style. And we got the whole gang on deck, Mom, Don, baby boy Phil. And you know, Mom, we kind of ought to tell the folks just how old these youngsters are. Some of the folks probably don't know. And Don, our oldest boy, is 15 years old. Phil's 13. And of course, men and Mom, we quit telling our age a long time ago.
My husband worked with a boy from North Carolina, and they called themselves the North Carolina Boys. They would come home to rehearse songs, and Phil would get in and help sing. And he had a high voice, so they would see how high he could go. They would hit a note, and Phil would repeat the note. All these entertainers, they didn't mind taking a little time to say, hey, you sound good, boy. Let's hear you sing Cool Water or something. And Phil would do that. And they would come home and rehearse the old songs like Barbara Allen.
You know, I kind of suggest that we get the Everly Brothers team up on one here. Phil, what are you going to sing this time?
Well, Dad, we'd like to do a number for the folks, and it's called Don't Let a Love Die.
Someone stole you, my darling, from me. Someone stole my love and your heart. Is it really true you don't care for me? Have you missed me since we've been apart?
The Everly Family Radio Show in 1952, when Don was 15 and Phil just 13. The boys were becoming accomplished harmony singers and guitar players, but Don already wanted to do more.
I was a big fan of Hank Williams, and he was a songwriter. All of a sudden, that just dawned on me that that's what and I was very fortunate. I got one published when I was about 17. Chet Atkins came to Knoxville, Tennessee, where we were working. Dad had corresponded with him, and he invited us to Nashville, Phil and I went over and showed him some of the songs. And he gave me some pointers. He really did.
Yeah, I brought them to town first when they were 15 and 17. And I rented them up in Knoxville. Their father played guitar, fingerstyle guitar. And so I'd heard of him a long time. And so I played up there at a fair, and they came out to see me at the fair. And I guess they didn't have money to get in. They were outside the fence, this wire screen fence, talking to me. And I didn't think at the time, I was a little stupid, that I should have gotten them on in to the fair. But anyway, I said, my boys here are good singers. He said, I want to bring them over to Nashville and let you hear some of their stuff, some of their songs. And at the time, I had a little publishing company. I was not working for a record company except freelancing.
Chet did the brothers a big favor simply by encouraging them, getting them into town, and as a result of the meeting, Don actually got a song he'd written recorded by one of the biggest female singers of the day.
I just heard the original song that was recorded, Thou Shalt Not Steal, by Kitty Wells back in 54, I think. And I just heard it again for the first time in 25 or 30 years, I forget. And I can't believe I really wrote it now. I'm going to have to call Chet up and ask him, how much did he help me?
In the Bible, it says, thou shalt not steal, but I have found the love I want. My heart knows that it's real. I found him in my best friend's arms. I stole him though I meant no harm. I found myself a sweetheart and lost myself a friend.
Kitty Wells, it was a follow-up to her, and we made enough money, I'll tell you. Made enough money off that to get us to Nashville. Buy new tires for the car and get us into the Union and some outfits and just set us up here for a little bit.
Thou Shalt Not Steal, a song that was a huge hit for Kitty Wells in 1955. And having been written by Don, it was the first real commercial success the Everlys would have. At the time, Chet didn't have the clout he would achieve later and was frustrated he couldn't help the boys further. He had got Don his publishing deal, though, and that led to the Kitty Wells song. Then the boys got themselves a 6-month recording deal with Columbia, which brought their first single release 50 years ago in 1956.
We got on records immediately when we went to Nashville when I was 16 and came out and bombed, and that's a hilarious story, that one. We cut 4 sides in 22 minutes with Carl Smith's band, who had just driven in from California, which is like a 2,000-mile trip, nonstop. And we're doing the session as early in the morning, doing the session before they went home. So you know they were in a hurry, and we cut 4 sides. And I sang sharp through the last 3, you know. They were really bad. And after it was over, it was like nothing had happened. And that was the culmination of all those years of work on the live radio, was to get to Nashville to cut a record, and that's what we had done in 22 minutes. And they were stinko, really stinko. And I always said in 55, when Elvis Presley came out with You Ain't Nothing But a Hound Dog, Don and I were doing The Sun Keeps Shining, and we were doing a waltz, you know. And the rest of the world was rock and rolling.
But it was that unthreatening, comfortable approach that would prove their making. Not only did the kids go for Don and Phil, their parents approved of them too. The ferocious onset of rock and roll with its more feral exponents, Elvis, Jerry Lee Lewis, Little Richard, had worried the nation's parents, so the Everlys' clean-cut, wholesome image went down very well indeed. While their first single might not have done much, and might have been out of kilter with what was going on around them, you could hear there was something there.
The sun keeps shining, the world keeps turning, the sea keeps rolling along. I found a new love, this one's a true love. I find that I'm happier now that you're gone. You thought my dream world would soon disappear, that all you would leave me was heartaches and tears. You thought that without you I could not carry on. My dream world still stands, though you are gone. The sun keeps shining, the world keeps turning, the sea keeps rolling along. I found a new love, this one's a true love. I find that I'm happier now that you're gone.
The sun keeps shining. Well, Don and Phil's first attempt at recording failed miserably, so they realized they'd need more weight behind them, and that weight came in the form of another Nashville Svengali, Wesley Rose, the son of Fred Rose, who'd signed Hank Williams and founded the Acuff Rose Publishing Company. He spotted the Everlys' potential immediately.
A couple of country boys, which were harmony singers, came in my office, and I liked what I heard. I called up Archie Blair because I was scheduled to record some country records for Cadence, which was just then going into the country business, and asked him if I could record these boys, so he agreed. It was country harmony, but remember, country harmony wasn't heard, so it was unique and unusual for all markets.
Wesley was so impressed that he bought out the brothers' existing publishing contract and hooked them up with 2 of Acuff Rose's hottest songwriters, Felice and Boudleaux Bryant. The result was stunning.
Bye-bye love, bye-bye happiness, hello loneliness, I think I'm gonna cry. Bye-bye, love. Bye-bye, sweet caress. Hello, emptiness. I feel like I could die. Bye-bye, my love, goodbye. There goes my baby with someone new. She sure looks happy, I sure am blue. She was my baby till he stepped in. Goodbye to romance, that might have been. Bye-bye, love. Bye-bye, happiness. Hello, loneliness. I think I'm gonna cry. Bye-bye, love. Bye-bye, sweet caress. Hello, emptiness. I feel like I could die. Bye-bye, my love, goodbye. I'm through with romance. I'm through with love. I'm through with counting the stars above. And here's the reason that I'm so free. My loving baby is through with me. Bye-bye, love. Bye-bye, happiness. Hello, loneliness. I think I'm gonna cry. Bye-bye, love. Bye-bye, sweet caress. Hello, emptiness. I feel like I could die. Bye-bye, my love, goodbye. Bye-bye, my love, goodbye. Bye-bye, my love, goodbye.
Bye Bye Love. The simple clarity of those harmonies and that driving guitar proved irresistible. The pairing of the Bryants with the Everly Brothers was inspired. John D Loudermilk.
Wesley was, he served a purpose, and Chet served a purpose, but Boudleaux and Felice actually wrote the tunes and arranged the tunes, and I think they were kind of very, very instrumental in getting there.
Boudleaux and I are building this lake house, and we're on the way to the lake, and Boudleaux's all excited. He's got an idea for Johnny and Jack.
Felice Bryant.
And I said, well, what is it? So he starts with, bye-bye love, bye-bye happiness. Have you ever heard Johnny and Jack? Have you ever heard a thing called, oh, your poison love has stained the lifeblood in? That's Johnny and Jack. That's the same, bye-bye love, that's the same chick, you know? So now Archie Blyer is coming to town. I don't know how Wesley made this connection, but he's coming down to add a country section to Cadence. So Wesley was given the Everlys, or the Everlys were introduced to Wesley by Chet, because Chet couldn't do anything for them on RCA. And the click, the magic, happened there. Boudleaux called Johnny and Jack and asked them if they would release the song, because Archie loved it. The Everlys were ready to do anything that anybody said to get on record. So the kids did it, and that night at the Opry, all I heard was, man, did you hear that session? Did you hear that session? And they were talking about these kids, good-looking guys, and this damn song, Bye Bye Love. Hell, I can still sing that thing. It's been haunting me ever since I left that session. So I said to Phil, I think something's happening here. I said, I've never heard so much buzz about a song, a new recording. I said, ever. And he said, gee, do you really think so? I hope you're right. Well, Archie was hearing it. Boudleaux was hearing it. And it happened. It hit all 3 markets within 2 weeks.
And Boudleaux was no stranger to writing for brother duets. This beautiful song is one he wrote with Chet Atkins for the Everly's heroes, the Louvin brothers. The way the melody and the harmony sat together showed how well he understood what a great brother duet could do.
I've had nothing but sorrow since you said we were through. There's no hope for tomorrow. the world treating you? Every sweet thing that mattered has been broken in two. All my dreams have been shattered. How's the world treating you? Got no plans for next Sunday.
How's the World Treating You, sung by the Louvin Brothers. Felice and Boudleaux had written a number of country hits for the likes of Little Jimmy Dickens, Eddie Arnold and Carl Smith. And when rock and roll came along, rather than running for the hills as many country writers did, they embraced the new sound and began to write their greatest material.
I was a pop writer. My technique came from Italian ballads. Boudleaux was a concert violinist, but his background was country, gospel, fa sol la singing, that's singing with shape notes. Boudleaux had the most fantastic feeling for chord structure that you ever saw. Your ear would go into orgasms over these chord structures. They were gorgeous.
And the Everleys were the perfect vehicle for these wonderful songs. The brothers were also beginning to realize their dream.
I wanted to get on the Grand Ole Opry. And I realized that we weren't typically Grand Ole Opry material when I arrived here. I mean, I wasn't Hank Williams, and we weren't the Louvin Brothers. They were typically that country sound. But Bye Bye Love changed everything. You know, just changed everything. From standing outside in the alley, we were on the stage. My life had hit the pinnacle when I was 19 or 20. Where's it go? I've done it, you know. I have hit it. I couldn't believe it. First of all, we were also very, very popular. We would play the Paramount Theater in New York, you know, 4 or 5 shows a day, screaming teenagers throwing lipstick tubes and things at us and craziness and, you know, all that. But it'd come to the Opry. You'd go and you'd sing, and that whole family audience would roar at the end of the song, and we'd sing another chorus, and they'd roar again, and we'd sing another couple of choruses, and you'd walk off, and the feeling was just incredible because it was your people.
That was Don, but in an interview many years later, Phil looked back at recording Bye Bye Love and remembered that things were still pretty hand-to-mouth and that they didn't expect to get much more from the recording than just the fee.
I was more interested in the $64 for the session, you know, than we needed the money at the time. But a good example, I knew how bright Boudleaux was, is because on the second record, which was a very important thing, we had gone through an entire catalog of Wake Up Rose songs, and it kept turning things down. And Boudleaux wrote Wake Up Little Susie, and he designed it, you know, for a guitar riff for Donald to fill. He designed spaces. He did things like that for us that I don't think if anybody we'd have found, you know, if we hadn't have run into him and Felice Bryant, we wouldn't have had that kind of people with that kind of ability to help guide and direct. Whatever I ever learned about writing, I learned from Boudleaux, watching him.
Bye Bye Love had stayed at #1 on the country chart for 7 weeks, made #3 on the pop chart, and even made #6 over here. But rather than resting on his laurels, Boudleaux was already working on that second single.
As far as the Everleys were concerned at that time, you had the obvious fact that the thing must be fairly obvious harmony song. Anything that we did for them after Bye Bye Love for the next session had to have a spot for that guitar that Don played. One has to imagine the sound of a particular artist singing the particular song, whatever it might be.
I told him, I said, I'm really crazy about Bo Diddley's rhythms and things. And this was back when I was a teenager, basically. I said, what do you think he does? And he said, well, he's tuning it differently. And so he showed me some tunings, G tuning. He showed me some things in the G tuning, which I took and used that as the basic for all the arrangement things in the early Everly Brothers stuff. And all the intros to Bye Bye Love and the fills and all that on Wake Up Little Susie is all inspired by that.
They were Boudleaux's guitar licks. In other words, he came up with the
Wake up, little Susie, wake up. Wake up, little Susie, wake up. We've both been sound asleep. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. Well, what are we gonna tell your mama? What are we gonna tell your pop? What am I gonna tell our friends when they say, ooh la la, wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. Well, I told your mama that you'd be in by 10. Well, Susie, baby, looks like we goofed again. Wake up, little Susie. Wake up, little Susie. We gotta go home. Wake up, little Susie, wake up.
Wake Up Little Susie was even bigger than Bye Bye Love, topping the country, pop and R&B charts, even though the song was banned in Boston for being too suggestive. Apart from everything else, the crossover appeal of the Everly Brothers had everyone in the business jumping up and down. And now Don and Phil and their manager Wesley were coasting, especially with writers Felice and Boudleaux in top form. Next week, the Everly Brothers meet Roy Orbison and Buddy Holly and the Crickets. Wesley buys them both a watch, and they sign the first $1 million recording contract. I'm Bob Harris, and the Everly Brothers story was a smooth operations production.